everyone. Welcome to our first birthday party. Thank you so much for joining us.
Just wanted to start with a little land acknowledgement. Feel free to put the land you're on in the chat. We acknowledge that we meet on stolen land and that it was never ceded. We acknowledge that the oldest living culture in the world is still here, the systemic injustices are still present, and that activism against systemic injustices in worker rights must include activism against the systemic exclusion and racism towards First Nations people. We acknowledge the ongoing fight for Aboriginal rights to be upheld and that we have a part to play in that too.
That's right.
I'm going to turn off that music.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
No, we don't really have a very detailed script for this, so maybe we'll talk over each other a few times, but it's going to be great. So look, Maize, thank you so much for joining me at the birthday party. It has been a wonderful year of unionising in Australia's games industry. As you know, this has been the first year since joining Professionals Australia, but we were active for quite a few years before that as Game Workers Unite Australia, and we kicked quite a few goals there just as a kind of volunteer activist movement. But it was 1 year ago today that we launched as Professionals Australia's newest division. And it's just been really, really exciting. And thank you for joining us. And thank you, Maize, for joining me today on the stream.
Yeah. Today we are going to go through what's happened in the last year and what's going to happen the next year. We're going to meet a very special member, Sarah Pavlich, who's been doing some really cool stuff over the last year. We're going to talk about May Day tomorrow. In Perth, the May Day rally was today, but tomorrow in Sydney and in Melbourne, we'll have GWA contingents. And then we'll see you all in the Discord for some games.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's kick it off. Look, there's a photo of our delegate, Mitch. Look at that. So look, this Professionals Australia is our parent union. And we're the newest division of that union internally. So we join a bunch of other wonderful, talented unionists across a huge variety of industries. Professionals Australia covers people in engineering, pharmacists, architects, medical research, IT, veterinarians, local government, scientists, and honestly, lots and lots more. We sit under a division called the MPD, which is the Managers and Professionals division within that union, which is kind of a broader group of really just anybody who is willing to unionize and works in a kind of software or knowledge related field, which is really, really exciting. And Professionals Australia have been really great about bringing us on board and making us feel like part of the collective. So if you were at our first party, our first launch party, you would have seen a bunch of unionists from all across Professionals Australia welcoming you as game workers to the collective and hopefully making you feel at home. So thank you so much to everyone who was in that video. 1 year on, we have definitely felt at home and it's been great to be part of the team.
Yeah, one of my highlights has definitely been seeing other IT companies unionizing with the energy of game workers, and it's been a really cool exchange between IT, who see us as a new energizing sector and cohort, and then seeing games workers see our IT and software colleagues and really take themselves seriously as professionals and people who want whole careers in games.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's so true. And I think what we often one of the great things about being part of such a big broader group is that we hold these kind of solidarity events where we call them solidarity sips, where you can go down to a pub and have beers, get on the beers with your fellow union members, and it's really, really great to go to those and to just chat to people from all across different walks of life who all have one thing in common, which is that they believe they should be treated with dignity and respect to their work. So a very very relatable concept. I think we can all agree.
yeah. All right, so we'll move on to what our last 12 months has looked like.
Hell yeah. You please.
Yeah, well, it's been massive. In our first 4 years of, I like to call our incubation period, we were really working on education from really like nothing upwards. It was helping games workers to know that they are part of the workers,
Yeah, that's right.
and that they do have rights. And getting the power of a national trade union has meant that in the last 12 months, we've been able to start taking quite massive legal action on behalf
Yeah.
of members.
That's right. I think during our startup sweat equity period, it was a lot harder for we couldn't really raise the venture capital that we needed, Maize, and but now that we've got the backing of Professionals Australia behind us, it's all good. But yes, look, that legal action has been really exciting to see. There's been a couple of really good stories come out lately, and maybe we can just go over those briefly. But in fact, just earlier this year, last month, I believe, one of our members was awarded $13,000 in costs and damages for a sham contracting case, which is really exciting. For those of you who aren't aware of what sham contracting is, that's when you are treated like an employee, but on paper you're a contractor, and there are very significant differences between those two things. I mean, Maize, you're a contractor yourself, the proudest contractor there is. As a contractor, you obviously have a lot of control over your work. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. My work conditions, when I work, from where I work. Actually, last year I got to work on the beach for a bit and just avoid Melbourne winter. And
Hashtag contractor life. Look at that.
yeah, those are the kinds of things that I'm really passionate that freelancers and contractors should be enjoying.
But if you're an employee and you said, I want to work from the beach today, your boss could say no, which would be entirely within their rights as an employee for them to do that to you. But that's what it means to be a sham contractor, is when technically it says you're a contractor on the paper, but actually your boss orders you around and has total control over your life. And that's what happened to our member, Anthony, who won that sham contracting case, which was really great for them. And they actually were at our monthly meeting last month, telling the group about how that all went down and the legal assistance they received from Professional Australia's industrial team, which was really cool. So if you haven't made it to one of our monthly meetings, please drop us a line. You can go to gameworkers.com.au/join, and we have a community Discord server application form there, so you can jump in and be part of the meetings.
Yeah, a real highlight of that story, I think, was just how much work Julia Lee, the industrial officer. Oh, actually, I think maybe it was a different.
That's the unfair dismissal one, I think.
Yeah.
But it was another industrial officer.
Yeah.
Whose name I forgot. I think Phoebe was the name.
Yeah, who represented Anthony and took over like all of the court stuff, all of the paperwork and things like that. And I think for me, it really showed that pursuing these kinds of things, there's a lot of support, and they were saying that it was still stressful and things like that, but it was completely worth it, because in the end the amount of work that they had to do to get the outcome wasn't that much because of having their union support.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what it is really. One of the great things about being part of the union is that you've got this sort of experienced and skilled team with you every step of the way. And like I've been in legal trouble with my employer before when I wasn't part of the union, and getting legal advice on that is super duper costly. The advice that I got put me out of pocket by about $350. That's 6 months worth of union membership, right there, like more than that probably. So it's financially just it makes so much sense, even if you're just looking for legal advice and then support, to just be part of the collective for that reason. And the unfair dismissals, which sorry, I did just double check, and it was Phoebe. So shout out to Phoebe. Thank you so much for helping Anthony with that. But the unfair dismissals were indeed spearheaded by Julia Lee. So this is public knowledge, so we can definitely talk about it, and we have spoken about it in our meetings previously, some of our monthly meetings. But Game Workers Australia took immutable to the Fair Work Commission earlier this year over what we alleged was the unfair dismissal of 2 of our members. That case is still ongoing. I don't think we've seen the results for that case yet, but that is the first time Game Workers Australia has launched unfair dismissal action on behalf of its members. And we were present for some of those hearings, and Professionals Australia staff contributed to those from all across the different areas inside Professionals Australia to make sure the case was as strong as possible. So very, very exciting time for Gameworks Australia as a union to be able to step up and have these fights with employers on behalf of our members, and hopefully this will be a really important test case for us as well in some of the sort of legal coverage questions that have been a little bit unresolved over the last few years. So it's going to be really, really interesting, and it's just been great to be able to do it at all.
Yeah. Moving on to award updates, and we'll go through these much more in depth a little later. But Professionals Australia, and including solid comrade Mateja Simovic, who came up through Gameworkers Australia and then now works for Professionals Australia, presented using Gameworkers as evidence on overtime within the Professional Employees Award. And so we have secured overtime pay rights, which is really massive. So that was something that Gameworkers was directly involved in, and under the Professional Employees Award that we're all under, improving life for everyone who's a game worker.
That's right. And the pay secrecy is another big one this year, and that is a nationwide change, not just for people in our industry, but the removal of pay secrecy has meant that people in our industry are able to kind of break that wall of silence around their paying conditions and actually get out there and start talking about what they're earning and what they're not earning, I suppose, and is more appropriate for many of our workers. And that's been really, really massive, and that's going to be such a powerful tool for us to really knock down that entrenched inequality in the industry that has built up over the last 20 or 30 years. Just to take a sledgehammer to that kind of unnecessary inequality and really, really get rid of it. So it's going to be really, really good. But we'll go through that in a bit more detail on the next couple of pages.
Yeah. Professionals Australia and Gameworkers Australia have done a few workshops over the last 12 months. PA have facilitated a tax workshop, which was a broad one across employees and contractors around personal tax and how to deal with that kind of thing, which was really good. We've had IP workshops done as well, focusing specifically on software, which has been really cool, and small business workshops around, and these have been more of an experiment since our first one in 2019, around how to run your business values first. So, if you value a certain thing or you have a certain ethics, what does that look like in a contractual manner or a production and process manner, that kind of thing. And Tim taught an awesome support person workshop. And this has been really key in every workplace that's been involved so far, is when you are having a meeting with your employer about anything to do with your employment, you are entitled to a support person. And that support person can be someone from your workplace, it could be your spouse or partner, or it could be a union official as well. And that's been really cool to know, how do you actually support someone, and really the ins and outs of those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we probably look at running another one of those in the next few months or so if people are interested. But I mean, in terms of the workshops, I think these are a really great example of the fact that we are driven, by our members on what they're asking for. It's the community and the membership who have been saying, I want this in a workshop, I want that in a workshop, and we take that to PA and we get some resources allocated and we make it happen. And that's, I think, one of the great parts about being part of this collective, is that we're able to finally do those things in a really meaningful way, and also to hook our members into the existing kind of workshop programs that are already being run. So that's been super cool.
Yeah, there was a few workshops done by YPA, who's Young Professionals Australia, and that's been especially good for students and recent graduates as well.
That's right.
Moving on to explosive growth.
That's right.
we reached 10% of the Australian industry union as union members in less than a year. It happened right around Melbourne International Games Week, and it's just, I think, just a surreal almost thought that when someone enters the industry now, 1 in 10 of the workers around them are part of the union. Like, it's the amount of support is just, I couldn't have imagined that when I first came into
So
games.
true. Yeah. And I remember, well, when you and I met at the free play in 2018, and, talking about this with lots of people and saying, oh, I've always wanted to join, but there hasn't been a kind of union, and it's been really gratifying to see, I guess, how much of that was true, that people were just kind of waiting for something to happen. And then when they saw that it was happening, they were jumping in like straight away and getting really stuck in. And that has been just so satisfying to see. And I think our figures have only continued to grow since then. So it's been really, really good. There are some studios where we have more than others, and there are some studios where we have less than others, but it's been really great growth across the whole of the landscape of the industry. And I think 100% density, let's get it done next year. Easy.
Yeah,
We're
great.
doing it. Yeah, easy. All right, put that down. That's a commitment.
Yeah. And that sign-ups meant that we've gotten elected delegates in multiple workplaces. So enough density at a workplace where they hold an election for one or more delegates who are then responsible for helping to compile what all of the workers think and having regular meetings with Professionals Australia and with the CEOs and bosses of those companies.
Right.
Like
I think we've got some great we're hearing from one of our delegates, Sarah, soon in the stream. But we also have some great delegates at some of our studios. Mighty Kingdom has quite a few delegates who do a top job. They're absolutely amazing. They're doing a really, really good job representing their members. And we've got delegates at other studios as well. So they're all doing a fantastic job. We love our delegates, and anyone who is interested in becoming a delegate, please reach out. We will organise training for you through Professional Australia's team, and you'll get all the support you need to kind of stand up and represent your colleagues in the workplace.
Yeah, and at this point, you can even get training before you become a delegate because, games workers were really unionising across the whole industry as well as workplaces. And Professionals Australia acknowledges that, So, I think, it yesterday or next Saturday that Mitch is going to delegate training, who will be a familiar face to people here. So that's, really exciting.
Shout out to Mitch. Keep an eye out for him in Sydney's rally tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. And then to finish off, just a huge Melbourne International Games Week. So last year, after becoming part of Professionals Australia in May, in October, we were like, all right, let's take on this 10-day conference basically and talk at conferences like High Score, GCAP and PAX. We had a booth at PAX as well, which was amazing. We definitely signed up a lot of students and new people, and even talked to people who weren't working in games and talked to them about their union as well. Yeah, and teenagers and parents. So that was really cool to talk about what does this industry look like. They felt really grateful that there was a booth really dedicated to talking to them, about the industry.
Super cool. Yeah, and I think, like one of the definitely the things I've noticed since being part of the union movement is that you get a lot more accurate information on what it's like to have a particular career from talking to a union officer or a unionized worker rather than from somebody whose job is to recruit you. Because it's a very different approach to giving you information. One is actively, trying to sell you on the job and recruit you because that's how they earn their money. And the other one is, is employed there and has experienced across a variety of different, in businesses within that industry. And they're just coming at it from a perspective of really valuing that industry and the skills and giving you an honest assessment of what it's like. So I think it's great that parents and and I guess teenagers are really getting that information from people who don't have a vested interest in selling them something that may not necessarily pan out.
And we had our massive group up event. So this was a networking event on the Tuesday night that we're organising to do this year as well. Already it's April and we're already organising for October, booking in the venue and everything and getting our spot in the calendar. But we had budgeted for 60 people to turn up and 100 did. So we're
So good.
looking to, double that this year. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yep. No,
Yeah,
but definitely, it was an amazing turnout, and it was so great to see, so many people. Like I definitely, I remember sitting there towards the end of the night, just kicking back and just feeling overwhelmed by how great it was to see so many people all coming together for such, a wonderful purpose, and especially for our first year, just such an amazing turnout. So thank you to everyone who came to that and everyone who helped to organize it. Really, just so good.
yeah. Oh, thanks for our last 12 months. It's been awesome.
All right, let's get into the weeds.
Overtime rules.
All right.
Go for it, Tim.
Sure. So I think it's really important to kind of set the picture here about where these changes come from, because I think one of the things that a lot of people don't know about the way that Australia's law works is that every so often the Fair Work Commission, which is the notionally independent government body, but the independent body that looks after different industrial laws, they invite submissions every few years on changes to those laws from different groups. And one of those groups is unions, and one of the groups that opposes them is employer groups, such as the Australian Industry Group and others whose job it is basically to turn up to the Fair Work Commission every year or so and say, I think people should earn less money. That's actually their job. I'm not hyperbolizing. I'm not exaggerating for comedic effect. That's actually what their job is. They represent the interests of employers, and the interests of employers very much are that you should earn less money. So Professionals Australia, knowing from experience that many workers, particularly in games and in IT, were earning very, very minimal entry-level graduate wages, and were actually, when you took into account the amount of overtime they were earning terrible hourly rates, just really terrible, $17, $18 in some cases or less. And they took that to the Fair Work Commission and said, well, this isn't really working out. This isn't sustainable. It's not going to work. It's not allowing people to build a standard of living for themselves. It's not allowing people to have a thriving career. It's terrible. And we need to start paying them overtime rates, because currently the professional employees award didn't have overtime rates in it. Your overtime was considered to be part of a total salary package that you just worked and you loved it. And naturally, the Australian Industry Group showed up and said, actually, we don't like that. If we have to start paying people overtime rates, businesses will collapse, cow milk will turn sour, the curtains will fade, all the rest of the usual terrible things that they all say will happen if anything changes in favor of employees. But thanks to, in large part, the evidence submitted by Professionals Australia and especially gathered from game workers and IT workers, the Fair Work Commission was sufficiently moved to agree that, in fact, paying people shocking hourly rates and putting in tons of overtime wasn't very good. And so they introduced overtime rates for a large portion of employees in our sector, which has been really, really good. So previously, overtime did not apply at all. And now employers actually have to start tracking the hours that their employees work and paying for all their hours that they work over 38. And you and I have reviewed quite a few contracts over the years, Maize, and definitely, one of the things that's never in those contracts is overtime rates.
Yeah,
It's never
absolutely.
there.
They'll say, "Oh, it'll just be covered by your wage. You'll work a reasonable amount of
Yeah,
overtime,"
that's right.
and it's
Yeah.
like,
And
well, what is it going to be?
yeah, and we all know crunch. Like crunch is used. We all know about crunch. And the problem with crunch, in addition to everything else, and the mental and physical damage that it causes to you, is that you don't get paid for it. But these new changes will mean that employers will actually, in fact, have to start paying you for that amount of work, which is really, really great, and is going to make a big, big difference to many of our graduate entry-level members, of which there are a huge portion, because many game studios are paying around that kind of point of graduate rates, even for people who have been there for quite a few years. They don't have anything that they don't really have a great system for skilling up and promoting people above, those kind of entry level wages. So it's going to impact a lot of people, which is really, really exciting. But I will note, just for clarity and for completeness, that these rules don't apply to people who are paid at 25% or higher above the minimum rate. So an employer can essentially buy out of having to track your overtime by just throwing a big chunk of money at you. And that is the way the law currently works. So if your employer is doing that, it should be noted in your contract, and that overtime that you would be paid is instead paid as giving you 25% above the minimum, which is obviously good for you, and we support that, but it will mean that they no longer have to actually track your hours or anything like that. So if you ever have, and the bottom line here, I think really is what it always is, which is that when you get a contract from your employer, kick it through the union so we can have a bloody look at it for you and tell you whether it's on the level or not.
Yeah, and that includes contractors.
Mhm.
This year, I signed a contract that has me on for the next few years probably, and I was able to kick it over. And it was during the Christmas and New Year's period, which is the ideal time to get anyone to do anything. But I still got a really great review and was able to ask a few clarifying questions for me specifically about IP and liability as well, which is a big contractor deal. So yeah, that was really great.
Yeah. So there you go. Overtime rules, they've changed. Pay secrecy changes as well. Do you want to take this one?
I'll give it a shot.
Sweet.
So previously, pay secrecy was legal in Australia. It's not legal everywhere. I think UK was one of the places that it wasn't legal, but now it's not legal here as well. So almost every game studio contract we've reviewed has had a pay secrecy clause. So don't talk about this contract to anyone else. And we've also had employers and people in different associations even just saying that pay secrecy is keeping the environment professional, or it's just don't talk about it because it's not cool or not professional to talk about working conditions or anything like that.
It's rude, actually. It's quite rude, isn't it, to talk about your pay in front of someone else?
Yeah. So, and this has been to punish workers and to make sure that workers aren't exchanging information about what they're getting in the workplace. But hopefully this change goes towards making sure that we have a culture of openness and transparency and everyone knowing where they actually are in the workplace and how they're being treated compared to others, especially when you come from a marginalised background or for some reason you don't have just the negotiation skills that other people might have, because we're game developers, we're not negotiators. It shouldn't be this extra skill that one must have. So now, pay secrecy has been outlawed for most employees. And this is more to do with just the rollout of the pay secrecy clause. So contracts with pay secrecy clauses prior to December 7, 2022, so when this started to happen, which have not been changed or amended in any way, are still lawful. But as soon as they are amended or changed, the pay secrecy clause must be removed, or it's just no longer valid anyway. And that includes all new contracts as well. So it's unlawful and can't be enforced. So if you have a contract past that date, or renewed or amended past that date, that clause is now null. Doesn't matter if it's still there. It's not enforceable. So towards the end of 2023, if I understand right, this is going to be cleaned up and made to apply across everyone. So we won't have this weird little complication. But as I understand, it's quite a legal hurdle to make that happen, but I'm glad that it is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've lost my train of thought. What I was going to say was that the pay secrecy changes are going to be a really, really big deal for helping people start to organize at work, because one of the, the reason that employers love to have pay secrecy is because one of the biggest motivating factors for workers is pay, right? I mean, a lot of people go to work because they get paid. And I think a lot of employers don't like to acknowledge that, but it's simply true. And so when you learn that you're being paid much less than your coworker or whatever, you obviously start to ask questions. So just blocking that out and making it illegal has had a massive chilling effect on the ability of workers to organize, because information is the first step of organizing. So it's really, really great to see that change, and that change was entirely driven by the union movement. So shout out to all the people who are in your union, whether you're in this one or another union. You and the work that you do in the workplace has led to this change, which is going to help everybody. So good work, unionists. You've done it again.
Yeah. All right. So we really want to spotlight a particular member, Sarah Pavlich. So if they are available, come into the Zoom call, Sarah.
Hello. Here.
There you are.
Mostly, I
Hello.
had to turn on my pizza party hat because that's extremely important, right? We will have to have
Thank you for joining the pizza party.
pizza party hats. It's random, but Zoom is random. Hi, yes, hello, it's me, Sarah. I use they them pronouns. I'm a member, previous workplace delegate. The union is great. Yeah.
All right, no further questions. Thanks, Sarah.
So Sarah, tell us a little bit about, how did you hear about the union? What was happening for you at that point in your life?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I looked at the questions you were gonna ask earlier and I was like, how did I find out about the union? And I'm realizing it was definitely Twitter, like absolutely Twitter. I remember back when the international movement was like kicking off and I was like really interested about it. I'm just someone who likes unions.
Mhm.
Unions are cool. Already kind of was, a union member of my retail union. And so I was like, yeah, hell yeah, game workers unionizing. That's awesome. And then obviously you and Tim started up the Australian kind of sector of it, and I was like, great. So I started like following that a bit. And then, you came a full-fledged trade union, which is super, super awesome. So I joined up.
Hell yeah.
Amazing. There were a few of us right there at the start, so I just do want to shout out Felicia as well, and Mitch and Taya especially as well. Just awesome comrades from the start.
Yeah. I mean, from day one, we relied on volunteers like yourself, Sarah, and like all the rest who you just shouted out, Maize, and like that's ultimately what it's all about is people just deciding that they want something to happen and then volunteering their time to make it happen. And thank you so much for being one of those volunteers. So, but what made you decide to take the leap and kind of put your hand up as a delegate at your workplace? And was there a period of time when you were like, oh, I should kind of play it safe or play it cool?
Yeah, I think so I started off at my first full-time game dev job was like a internship graduate program. It was fully paid. I would not accept an unpaid internship. And it was good. It was really awesome, like genuinely an awesome positive experience. But it got to the point where they were offering us our full-time contracts. There was a group of us. And it was below the award rate. Our original contract was also below the award rate, but I was getting a lot of hands-on mentorship, and I was like, okay, I'll take it as is, and then if I get full offer, I'll make sure that I get something that is correct. And so that it went really well. And the first 12 months went great. I felt like I'd done a really good job, but they gave me an offer below the award rate, and even then I thought I deserved more because I was really good at what I was doing and I was trained really well. And I joined. Actually that's exactly when I fully signed up, jumped on. I think this was even before we had our own membership yet, so I jumped on with PA to start with, because I was like, this could get dicey. I want to make sure I'm actually a paid member. I can get the full support. And yeah, so we sat down and we went into that meeting and I was like, hey, this offer's below the award rate. It wasn't a lot below the award rate either, mind you. And so I, queried that with them, and, it was this whole kind of situation. They kind of refused to give us more money, and it was really stressful. And so it really sucked. But the good thing was that shortly after that incident, I got elected as the workplace delegate, which was nerve-wracking and super exciting and awesome at the same time. I managed to get quite a few people signed up as members for that voting, which was awesome. And since then, the membership there has continued to grow. I'm at a different workplace now, but in my last week, literally my last week at the company, there was a round of layoffs and redundancies, and we were able to elect 4 new workplace delegates, which is super, super awesome. And they have continued to do a lot of great work. And the union supported a bunch during the layoffs, the redundancies. Like Matea in particular was in our consulting meetings, and he did a fantastic job just making sure the company was doing the right thing. They tried to come in with good intentions, as good as intentions can be during a redundancy, but there was still mistakes that they were making and things they weren't communicating very well. Like I found out during that process that if a company is laying off, I think like more than 10 people, they have to inform a union, like their most relevant union, like they have to let them know in advance. And the workplace knew who to talk to. Like they knew I was a delegate. I told them that. I made it very clear that I was doing this work within the company, and they didn't do that. It's just these like little things. And I'm not sure, like I don't think anybody necessarily, kept their job or got anything extra from that support, but it just was so much better. And we also were able to all talk together as well. And following that, I know those delegates have done a ton of work to continue to improve things and continue to make things better there. And I know they're doing good work. The PA rep that works with them in Adelaide, I caught up with her recently at one of our solidarity sips, and it was just really nice chatting about the work that they're doing and just kind of catching up and hearing how things are going. So overall, a positive experience, as stressful as it was. It was good. I'm glad that I did it. I'm very happy that I did it.
Love it.
So, what was one of your favorite stories of being a delegate? Let's hear something positive, hopefully.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people just appreciated that there was someone to talk to about it and that somebody was there, because it's really interesting. Like a lot of people are very nervous about getting involved with a union when there is issues within their workplace, because even though legally the workplace can't do anything bad to them for being union members, or even ask if they're union members, it's it's just nice that like I felt good about it because I felt like I was making a difference. You know what I mean? Like I was genuinely helping people, and people really appreciated that I was helping them. And that's just awesome. Like the redundancies at our workplace sucked, but the best thing that came out of it was this really collective kind of support and outreach from everybody. We had former employees, reaching out and helping us find people new work and everything like that, which was awesome. Another thing that was great is because of this work that I've done, I spoke during Games Week, which was super awesome. And after I did that speech, I had other people throughout the week coming up and talking to me, a lot of QA people in particular, because I work in QA, and it's a big reason why I joined the union and was super involved is because of all the awesome work the QA staff are doing in America and the way that QA is unionizing America. I wanted to join out of solidarity, let alone because I wanted to make things better here. And so I had people and quite a few QA people coming up and talking to me during Games Week about union stuff, about pay as well, which was super, super awesome. Like, it's a lot of like I'm pretty young, so a lot of younger people coming and talking to me, and just like the fact that we're talking about this openly and transparently is awesome. Genuinely, really super, super cool. So yeah, the fact that it means that people will come and talk to me, and I'm somebody that, because I always want to help people, like genuinely always want to help people. So the fact that people would come up to me and ask for help is just like awesome. I'm like, great, how can I help? Let me help you.
Love it.
Yeah, it just makes me think when I first came into the industry, and there wasn't someone to ask, like it didn't feel like there was.
Yeah, and that's the
yeah.
tricky thing with having graduates, trying to ask for better pay and better conditions. A lot of them were just really nervous and didn't want to push for it. And I was like, well, I know my job's relatively safe. I've got a great boss, and I know that they like I do good work for this company, so I felt safe enough to push on it. You know what I mean? Because I was like, well, me asking for this isn't going to end poorly. Whereas other people think if I push back or if I ask for my rights, my minimums, then they're just going to get rid of me because somebody else can come along and take it. But there's not a ton of people in Australia who want to do QA full time and want it to be their career. And I do. So I've got extra value and extra safety and security. So I may as well be the one that, you know, puts my neck on the line a little bit more than the people with less secure jobs because, you know, that's going to help everybody. Why not?
Love it. This is a little bit off script, Maize. So I'm going into the weeds. But what do you see the role of the delegate being in the workplace? And, you know, like what would you say to people who are interested in becoming a delegate?
Yeah, so I think there are two sides to it. One of it is being a support person. Like, especially, I didn't get any delegate training because it all happened really quickly. But especially if you've received training from the union, you're generally somebody who's coming in more informed. So you have information you can share with people. You can be that support. You can be a support person in their meetings as well. If you feel confident doing that, you can be that support person. And it can just give you the opportunity to have that kind of relationship with people, if that makes sense. Like, be a supporter, be a helper, beyond just like in your work and your job. The other side of thing is actually organizing it. So a big thing that I was doing was just talking to a lot of people, like literally just going around to the people I was close with and just talking to them about the issues we were having and listening to people's complaints and starting to gather information to see, okay, where are the problems that we all agree to? What could be done better? How can we collectively work together to make the workplace a better place? So it's tricky sometimes. It's tricky talking about the union movement in work at my new workplace. I've talked to a few people about it, but I came into that job already visibly being a union member, so it was a bit easier to start talking to people about it. And I know my work knows that I'm a union member, so you know, they hired me knowing that, so it's going to be all good. And yeah, so a lot of there's a lot of work involved, but you can actually make a difference, and you can like the things that people told me after I became a delegate, like it was a bit rough. It's good to have multiple delegates, to have somebody to support you with it. But I think people were just happy to have someone they could talk to and know that I was there to like make a difference and make things better.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's just improving the actual workplace, you know, and we have a lot of studios who are like, oh, we're a progressive studio and we care about our workers, or we have progressive politics and things like that. But that doesn't stop there being issues, no matter how big or small or nuanced in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved everybody that I worked with. Like, we had some awesome people at that previous workplace, but there were problems, and nobody was really ready to critique or say like, hey, this is a problem, it needs fixing, because people were happy enough with the way things were, and they couldn't understand that not only could things be better, they deserved things to be better.
Yeah, it's really cool that, you know, there needs to be representation from every department and from every level. Doesn't matter how junior or senior, you know, and it improves the whole industry. You know, you've moved to another workplace and going to unionize that place. Like, it's, yeah, that's great.
That's right. That's the commitment from you, Sarah. Thank you for giving that commitment on stream. We appreciate it.
I've been thinking about it. We'll see. I got some plans. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think if any employers watching this, put your money where your mouth is and do a collective bargaining agreement. You know, you want to talk about being a great workplace. Well, fucking prove it.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about like doing that bargaining and trying to get like it's going to be written down on paper. Like, both my previous and current workplace have some amazing workplace policies, and generally it's really awesome, but it's not written down in our contracts. Some of it is, especially my new workplace, there's some better stuff in my contract, but there's some awesome values and benefits from working there, but it's not in
the agreement.
It's in workplace policy, which is great, but that can be changed at any time. And in my previous workplace, especially as I was leaving, they were starting to tighten how they were handling some of their benefits. You know, they weren't changing it, but it was definitely becoming harder or more difficult, or just the atmosphere and the mood towards it changed. And that's deeply frustrating because it's what made it such a good workplace. You know what I mean? It's like, we need to get an EBA, we need to get that written down so it can't be changed. At least not immediately. Like I think every 2 years or something it can be updated, but they have to work with the workers to bargain for an agreement that everyone is happy with, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah, what are you looking forward to in the next year?
So many things. I got a lot of personal plans, personal things I'm trying to do, but
Awesome.
union-wise, we just submitted for a GCAP talk, so that's exciting. I will be speaking at that, which is cool. I've also submitted my own GCAP talk, so hopefully both of those get through. I'm looking forward to again doing our networking event at GameSpeak as well. We've got some plans of potentially a nice venue to host it in, which I'm kind of excited about. And yeah, I mean, like the past few months, I've definitely been talking to more of my games friends about their working conditions, and that's been awesome that I can have those conversations and actually feel like it's a meaningful conversation, right? And so I'm looking forward to us getting more members. You know,
Yeah.
I try and make every monthly meeting, and they've been pretty good lately. They've been having like really high attendance to our monthly meetings, so I'm super excited to see more of those. Would love us to get an EVA from one of the many companies. That would
Definitely
be
going to
super
happen.
awesome.
That's this year's goal for sure.
Yeah, would be super awesome. Set a real precedent for the rest of the industry to kind of follow suit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah, you mentioned earlier that a lot of people are really nervous about joining the union, even when they know they're being screwed over at work, and even when they know they're just asking for basic self-respect, or even when they know they're just asking for something that would be a fundamental right in any other industry. So what do you say to people who are worried about joining the union?
Well, the number one thing to remember is your workplace cannot ask you if you're a union member, and you do not have to tell them. But it's confidential information. They don't need to know. Of course, they might find out, or it might come out, or whatever, but they don't need to know. They can't like actually treat you negatively because of it. We go to the Fair Work Commission and we go through it, and theoretically it gets resolved positively, but at the end of the day, we all want our industry to be better. We want it to be sustainable. That's a really big thing for me. Like, I'm still new. I've only been in the industry for a few years, haven't gotten burnt out yet. But so many people do, and we really need to be working on a more sustainable industry, because like our jobs are pretty cool. Like, I love making video games for a living. It's awesome. It's still a job.
Hell yeah.
And we still deserve to be paid appropriately. We still deserve to be able to go home and not get stressed or not work weekends, or at least be compensated fairly if we do have to work weekends. It is a job. We love it. We're passionate about it. It's an art form. It's super freaking awesome. It's still a job. We're still getting paid. We still need to be taken care of by the people that we work for. And games wouldn't exist without the people that make them. Yeah. Join your union.
Love it.
Yeah. I just think about, retiring and still working in games, just the thought of possibly retiring ever.
Yeah, it's wild.
That would be awesome.
What a dream. Being able to retire.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. And
No worries.
The next 12 months with you and with everyone is going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm also going to be at the May Day rally tomorrow in Melbourne.
Awesome. So if you're in Melbourne and you're coming to our May Day rally, look out for Sarah's face.
I'll be wearing this t-shirt, of course.
Yes.
Very important.
Love it.
And I have red hair, so I'm pretty easy to spot in a crowd.
There you go.
Cool. Well,
thank you, Sarah. Love your work, and thank you for everything you've done for all of our members and for the studios that you've worked at.
Yeah, and if anybody sees me around or online and wants to talk union things, absolutely, I will not union and QA things are two things I am very, very happy to talk about. But yeah, good luck with the rest of the stream. It's going to be good.
Thank you. Thanks for popping in.
All right. Speaking of the next 12 months, and
that's right.
I better make this QR code scannable by making sure our pictures are not covering it.
Oh gosh, they are.
There we go.
So there it is. Please get out your phone and scan the QR code. This is for our national survey, which we're currently running until the 19th of May. If we will see how we're doing with the numbers, we may extend it. But at the moment, it closes on the 19th of May. And the purpose of this survey is to get an accurate snapshot of what our beautiful industry looks like at the moment. Because one of the really frustrating parts about this industry is that none of us ever really know what it looks like, or how many people are in it, or what they're earning, or where they are, or anything like that. And that is one of the things that we can only really solve by doing these kind of regular reports and surveys.
Yeah, so our last one was in 2019 and it showed some really scary stuff.
Mm.
Um, so it was a pretty good survey for us at the time, especially being, um, just fledgling grassroots. So over 250 workers, I think, is a massive effort.
Definitely. Oh, I think you need to drag our video back into the other side.
I have done it.
Fantastic.
Um, so we we just left the previous conversation talking about sustainability and how long we want to be in these careers. And at that point, only 35% stayed longer than 5 years. And now that is a bit higher than what we see from surveys like that go through GDC, so the more international ones. But 5 years, like,
Yeah, it's
come
pretty
on.
grim, isn't it? Yeah. And like the 10 years as well mark is very harsh. Only 13% really making that 10-year mark is very grim. And that fits with a lot of the feedback that people give when they do exit the industry, which is just, I can't afford to stay in this industry and I'm burned out. I'm financially burned out and I'm emotionally burned out. And one of the points that we always make when we talk about these things is, well, who's going to solve that for you? It's not going to be the employer, and it's not going to be the government. So it's going to be you and all of your colleagues working together that solve that. It's not nobody is coming to save you. You all need to save each other, and we all need to save each other, and that's what we are trying to do through the union. So, that's why I think these figures are so good to remind ourselves of every so often, so that we know what we're fighting for.
Yeah. We also found in games that 20% of full-time employees were earning below the legal award wage. And, when the award wage is often thought about as for IT and software, and, people who, as soon as they graduate, they're earning quite a lot. But for games, it's still seen as this passion industry, and we're earning very, very little. And, it's something like a third of what our software colleagues are. And now that we're in the union with them, we can directly compare this kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, that's right. And the job security one, I think, is, that always gets to me when I look at the amount of people who are either slightly or very concerned about immediately losing their job. That's like that sort of thing really adds to the burnout and the mental load that you have to go through every day of just, planning the next 6 months ahead. Will I have a job? And thinking about that all the time just really gets to people. And that's one of that kind of job security that you can only really enforce through collective bargaining, is exactly what we need to be looking at. And yeah. So that one always gets me when I look at how many people are just anxious all the time about their work. Very upsetting.
Yeah, it's just a massive mental load that leads to worse work as well, and worse lives. Our lives shouldn't just be about work, but when it's constantly impacting, yeah, it is. So
you got to spend that extra hour a day looking for more work and constantly keeping your eye open for new opportunities rather than being able to focus on what's in front of you.
Yeah. A clear majority of respondents identified as male, and they also took up most of the positions of people earning higher than average. So people who were earning over 80, 90 or 100K a year, most of them by far were all male identifying. Just a normal,
workforce, yeah.
We're all used to having this stat now, but that's what's so exciting about trade pay transparency and about actually collectivizing in workplaces and creating this culture where we can really start to move against this, and start creating a more equitable industry for ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah. And everyone has a horror story.
Yeah, we got so many, we always try to put information on spaces rather on those surveys for, people to share information with us about what's on their mind. And, so many of the stories that came back, just really upsetting, just really, really upsetting stuff about the way people have been treated and the kind of power structures and horrible little hierarchies inside workplaces. Very upsetting. So really, really good to really remind ourselves that a lot of people's are still really struggling with work. And they're obviously, I think it's very easy for our industry, and this is, I think, true for IT as well, where to kind of fall prey to a sort of toxic positivity about the workplace, which is the sort of, LinkedIn style culture you see where everybody only wants to talk about, going on the up and up and all the great opportunities and learning takeaways and stuff that they've had and, how exciting it was to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about that, but there are a lot of people who go in this industry and they suffer and burn out, and we need to be doing what we can to bring them back and figure out what is it that's driving people away and, and do what we can to help people who are struggling. And that's what this sort of data really helps us do, and what the sort of collective strength of the union helps us to do, so that we're not just ignoring these people who are struggling and only focusing on the success stories, the people who have managed to make it, the people who have got the traits to avoid abuse or discrimination and who have made it through. Yeah, we need to be keeping a holistic, realistic picture of the industry.
Yeah. So I'll just show you that QR code again. Here it is. We're excited about having much more data this year, being able to compare to our IT and software colleagues. It's a really 2023 is very different to 2019. So it'll be great to help craft, our goals going forward, and the different things that we need to concentrate on and how different they are to what 2019 was like.
And I can see there's a link to it in the chat, which is great. So we've also got a question from Thomas. Thomas says, I'm a tutor at a university. How can I let my students know about GWA? You can, there are a couple of ways. You can invite somebody to come along, if you like, from Professionals Australia to talk to your students.
Yep.
If you've got that capability. One of us would absolutely love to shape their impressionable young minds. And another way is you can simply tell them about our website, gameworkers.com.au. All the information they need on the industry on the union is there. But I think, there's no real prescribed or way to tell anyone about us. It's really just about making sure the conversation, any conversation about any workplace, whether it's our industry or construction or, food processing or whatever, includes mentioning that there is a union for that workplace and they are your advocate in that workplace, because they are owned and controlled by you as an employee and they're not answerable to your boss. So there's no real wrong way to put them in the conversation. Just start talking about them and point people in the right direction to learn more. But absolutely feel free to reach out to us directly and see if somebody would like to come along and talk about unionizing and why it's important. There was a time when we did used to teach about unions in schools. We don't do that anymore. Let's not get all conspiratorial on the birthday stream, but that was a deliberate decision by certain people in power. So let's bring it back into the conversation and start talking about it again. Oh, I can see you've got a follow-up there, Thomas. Will there be someone I can ask for further information at the Sydney rally? I believe that we'll have a bunch of Professionals Australia staff at the Sydney rally who'll be more than happy to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of students who are graduating games now, they're graduating with teams that they hope to start small businesses with, or they're graduating and going straight into employment somewhere. And all of these contracts and things should be looked over by the union. So get them to join up with the student rate, which I think is something really small, like
so cheap.
Yeah.
I think it's like $3 a week or something like that.
Yeah,
it's super cheap. So we very much do have entry pathways for students who are wanting to be involved in the union movement. They don't need to wait until they graduate. So jump in.
Yeah, YPA, Young Professionals Australia, has a heap of career guidance and advice. They help connect people with mentors, and they also do, things like folio and LinkedIn reviews and things like that, helping people to negotiate pay or job interview training, all kinds of things like that. So it's really something that students should get involved in.
Yeah, and the students are also welcome to. Sorry, Maize, I talked over you at the end there. The students are also welcome to join the Game Workers community Discord. The application link for that is on the gameworkers.com.au website. And we have a bunch of students in the Discord. Some of them are quite active and come along to our meetings every month. And they're more than welcome to post any questions or get any help they might want from the community there. It's filled with union members and union and industry people who are curious about the union, and there's a lot of goodwill there and a lot of resources that they can take advantage of. A lot of people regularly post, can you help me with my portfolio? Can you help me with my CV? And there's job opportunities there as well, and it's just a good resource to be a part of. So definitely encourage that.
Yeah. Well, have you heard anything about this workplace?
That's a really good question. Then.
Yeah.
And that, like, a lot of people want to know that information about a workplace before they join, because the company is never going to give you an accurate picture of their culture. Like the company, you can't go to an employer and say, hey, I notice a lot of people leave your company and then complain about it on Twitter. What's that about? Like, you can't get that in the kind of inside information from the company. So you really need to have a safe place where you can ask that information, and we provide that.
What a great question. Thanks.
Thanks, Thomas.
So our next 12 months, we've just talked a lot about our national survey and report. We're really, really excited about that. Excited to have more data than ever, and even see, the differences between 2019 and 2023 as well. We mentioned a few times during the conversation with Sarah, our first EBA, Enterprise Bargaining Agreement.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of studios here in Australia now where there are enough union members that they are openly discussing what it would take to begin the process of bargaining, which is super exciting. Many of our studios are not that big and would realistically only need 30 to 40 people all signing up to begin the process of bargaining. So it's quite achievable to actually begin that process and to be in the race to be Australia's first game studio with a collective agreement. There'll be a history in the making there. We're really excited for somebody to, one of those studios to be the first one to get that over the line. So yeah, again, challenge to all the bosses out there. You could be the studio that holds that title if you really want to put your money where your mouth is about being a progressive place to work. Get it done.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. We're excited to continue growing. So we grew to having 10% of the entire industry as members. So 1 in 10 of your workers around you is a member of the union. That's amazing.
So good.
This year, 1 in 5 people.
Easy.
Maybe 100% of the people.
100% easy. We got this.
Yeah.
You got this.
And continue improving conditions for everyone. So we are looking to make more submissions to the Fair Work Commission, getting our award updated to the 21st century and
it's very outdated.
Yeah, and to games workers and what our conditions look like and what our roles look like. More overhauls to workplace laws. Can I hear a 4-day work week?
Everyone's talking about it. More and more people are talking about this 4-day work week. And look, that's the sort of thing that you can discuss in an enterprise bargaining agreement, is that you can say we are going to operate on a 4-day work week. It's something that you can put up there. The world's your oyster in terms of locking stuff in an enterprise agreement. So it's a really great chance for you to say, actually, we really value this. Let's lock it in. Let's put it in paper. Let's write it down. Let's make it happen. So really, really great stuff. And, let's shift away from bargaining agreements and start talking about the contractor workforce, because I think this is really, really really critical for us to address as we move forward is to make sure that we're not leaving contractors behind. And one of the tools we started this a couple of years ago, to kind of a database of contractor rates, but the project kind of got out of scope, and we didn't really keep up with it, and we need to revisit that and get it into a more workable format. But one of the things that we really want to get going off the ground in 2023 or within the next 12 months is a reliable rates database for contractors, so that contractors can know what they're charging is competitive, know that they're not undercutting their colleagues and their fellow union members, and know that they're helping to make the industry more sustainable rather than just undercutting each other and racing to the bottom. So that's one of the big things that we need to get off the ground in 2023, and it's a really exciting project.
Yeah, it's been really cool to be a part of the MPD committee, which is the division that game workers are a part of in Professionals Australia, and seeing that the so-called digital nomads of IT and software, they want contractor resources and things as well. So we've been really pushing for updated contractor resources as part of Professionals Australia as well. More workshops, more contract templates, more of all kinds of things. So really excited about continuing to do that work.
Very cool.
All right, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
I wanted to highlight some of the people's faces for you to look for tomorrow, so that if you're in Sydney or Melbourne, you can look for them. We've already seen Sarah earlier, who'll be at Melbourne. I'll be in Melbourne as well, and that's Kaylin's face up on the Melbourne May Day poster. And then there's Mitch's face up on the Sydney May Day poster. So in Sydney, they'll be meeting at 10:30 a.m. in Belmore Park by the old band rotunda. So get together with your GWA cohort over there, and then join the rally within that group. In Melbourne, it's 5 p.m. at the State Library by the George and the Dragon statue. Kaylin's in the chat, and we'll be there as well. So the plan is you meet up just slightly before the rally starts so that we can all organise to be together. And then the rally starts and we go on our march, or the talks at the rally will start, or that kind of thing. It was really important for me to kind of make sure that there were faces for you all to see, because the games industry, we haven't been involved in worker rights. We haven't only existing in this neoliberal era, we don't have that tradition. And so there's a lot of people who've never been to a rally or a protest or anything like that before. And I wanted to make sure that everyone has a chance to buddy up with someone, and that you're not going to be there alone, and there's going to be all kinds of people with all kinds of experience there at the rallies for you to catch up with.
I remember, I think that's so well put, Maze. I agree, and I think I had a very similar experience. When I went to my first May Day rally, when I became involved with the union movement, and it was just really, really wonderful to be surrounded by a really rich tradition of wanting to fight for social justice, and really seeing it manifested in across the generations. You've got 80, 90-year-olds walking alongside 30 and 40-year-olds, all united in the same cause, which is, wanting the world to be better than it is, and wanting the world to not be controlled by the super rich. And those are like things that we should all want, and those things that we can all achieve together. And May Day is a really, really great opportunity for you to, reconnect with that industry and to reconnect with that movement, and to realize that our industry is part of that. And it is, as Sarah went to great pains to say, we are workers, we all work. And, we can't let ourselves be tricked into thinking that just because we're not, wiping coal dust off our face as we emerge from the mine shaft, at the end of the day, doesn't mean we're not actually working, doesn't mean we're not entitled to those sort of protections. And it doesn't mean we're not part of this really important ongoing struggle for a better world. So go to May Day and have fun.
Yeah.
Be a part of it. Wave your fist around the air, shout. It's a great time. It's good stuff.
All right. But this afternoon, why don't you join us in the Discord? We're gonna play some Discord games and just have a nice, fun little time. Yeah, hit that link if you're not in the Discord already, and put your application through and we'll get you in. Yeah, thanks everyone for the last year and for the next year and for tuning in.
Yeah, it's really like although Maize and I are your currently elected conveners, we are not the union. It is everyone out there who is the union, and it's our many hundreds of members who are the union. And thank you so much for being part of that movement and for being part of this exciting new experiment in trade unionism. And it's really, really exciting, and it's great to see both what we're doing here in Australia and what's happening internationally. It's so cool, and thanks for being part of it.
All right, see you then.
See you, everyone.